Well, good evening everybody and welcome to this live Facebook Q&A session with ARDEX and Polypipe, and tonight we're going to be talking all things wet-fed retrofit underfloor heating systems. My name's Phil Jenkins and we're coming to you live from the ARDEX Academy here at ARDEX UK in Haverhill. We're going to be talking about our collaboration between ARDEX and Polypipe. We're going to talk about Polypipe's underfloor heating systems. We're going to have a few questions, and then we're going to throw the floor open to you. So do get your comments into the comments box below, and we'll get to them later in the session. Also, it'd be great if you could pop on the comments where you're joining us from tonight. So we're going to start off. We're going to introduce our guests tonight. So first of all, Nigel from Polypipe, please introduce yourself.
How are we doing? You all right?
Yeah, very good, thanks, mate.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me. My name's Nigel Kennedy, and I basically run the site support nationally for Polypipe on the underfloor heating side of things, and I also deal with all our training up and down the country as well. So hopefully we'll answer any questions you've got tonight, and between us, Lou, we should be able to tackle any problems, shouldn't we?
Yeah, dispel a few myths, I think, tonight, mate, and you know, this is obviously a hot topic, and there's been lots of information in the industry now for many years, and we'll talk about our collaboration as we go forward. But yeah, do you want me to introduce yourself?
Introduce yourself, please, Lewis. Yes, please. Yeah.
Brought us in. So my name's Lewis Lupton. For those who don't know me, I'm the head of training and technical support for ARDEX Group in the UK. It's an interesting topic for me. A really interesting topic for me, and I'm sure Nigel will agree to that as well.
Absolutely.
We are questioned with these type of installations every single day of the week. You know, with the team, we'll talk about the team later, I guess, as well. And hopefully, guys, just to reiterate what Phil said, you know, if you guys have got any questions, any experiences as well, you know, we will try and clear a lot of those up tonight. And you know, rest assured that the information that we give tonight is come from a real good place, tried, tested, trusted now, you know, with some real guaranteed solutions. It's taken an awful long time to get to this point.
Yes.
And we look forward to getting stuck in, really.
Fantastic. So let's go back then a little bit. Why are we forming this collaboration now?
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, you go, mate. You go.
Well, I think it's fair to say, and obviously Lou's been in the industry some years, myself included in that, and it's always sort of been a grey area where, you know, I'm sure you guys haven't been fully aware on the underfloor heating side. We certainly haven't been fully aware on the screening side, so it definitely made sense to use each other's knowledge, come together and actually start singing off the same hymn sheet for the installers out there, so that they've got somewhere they can go to and trust on certain questions when we're talking about using ARDEX products with Polypipe's products.
It had to be done, mate, I think, didn't it?
Yeah.
You know, we both, as we'll probably talk through, you know, some of the things that we've seen over the years and some real do's and don'ts, I guess. We don't want this to be, you know, we haven't got all night, of course, and if anybody knows me and him, you know, this could be going on for a fair bit tonight. So, but I think it had to happen.
Yeah,
you know, as most people who are tuning into this, and hopefully later on as well, if you're not lucky enough to watch it live tonight, you may have seen or heard of some horror stories, and as we said before, some lots of misinformation and stuff, and we really wanted to work with the people in the know. You know, I think was right to say from us. You know, we see Polypipe as the market leader. I'm sure they see us in the same way when it comes to this kind of innovation and the support that we offer. So for me, yeah, it had to happen. We had to talk to the right people. We had to look at the right systems. Basically, we want people to be successful in their installations. And I think that's something me and you talk about an awful lot, innit?
100%, yeah, because I mean, a happy installation means people happy with the products, and you don't want the products in the firing line when we know the good products if they're installed correctly.
Yeah.
So. Excellent. Let's touch on, so tonight we're going to talk about the wet-fed, the RetroFit Systems. Nigel, do you want to sort of give us an overview of the systems that Polypipe have got and that we're going to be recommending ARDEX for?
Obviously, with it being retrofit, we're bringing overlay to the forefront, and overlay plus, which sort of not replaced but sort of came into the product range to work alongside overlay. Now, overlay's been going now nearly as long as I've been alive. You know, it's been 25 to 30 years there.
So it's not as new as maybe some would think.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I believe we were one of the, if not the first, to bring out a low profile board in the underfloor heating retrofit market. And that original board was a gypsum fibre panel, which you'll see on some of the pictures behind us. It's 18mm thick with houses of 12mm pipe at 150mm centres, and yeah, it was designed for, you know, the biggest myth that people think out there is that they have to start digging the floors out if they want underfloor heating. It's not the case. With these low profile systems, so long as the subfloor, which we're going to get into more detail on very soon, is structural, level and free of deflection, then we can install it. The Overlay Plus that came in 2018 is actually the black board. It's made from a slightly different material, so it's made from extruded polystyrene as opposed to gypsum fibre. And what this means is the first advantage of it is it's a hell of a lot lighter to cut around on site, a lot easier to cut. And due to the nature of the makeup of the board, we've got the extruded polystyrene, we've then got a full coverage of aluminium foil throughout the panel, and then that is topped with like a black fleece layer to allow bonding to, which is again something what we're going to be talking more, you know, tiling to it, putting self-levelers over it. And yeah, that actually produces up to about 10-15% better output than the standard overlay due to that aluminium foil layer. So yeah, it's definitely sort of put a foothold in the market. It does differ slightly to the competitors out there, and the major sort of advantage on that front is the aluminium actually goes into the pipe groove fully, whereas a lot out there on the market don't. So that actually does give you a better spread of heat as well, and a better output. So.
Yeah, great. Okay, so looking at the systems then, you know, for both of you really, so what sort of issues have you sort of both encountered on site which has sort of made this collaboration happen? I don't know if, Lewis, do you want to start off?
I think first and foremost, I think that, you know, as these systems have become more popular, it's been really difficult for us as an industry to keep up, essentially. As we know, this is coming. Nigel, you'll talk to me, you know, as a bit of board about, you know, heat regs and things like that, mate. And I know, you know, and I'm not going to go there because that's a bridge too far for my little brain. But nevertheless, you know, for our industry, it's been difficult, you know, knowing who we're working with, the types of system we're working with, what types of board, what type of face to the distribution plate, for example, or the panel, should I say. What type of products are suitable? Do you just whack a grip primer over it? Do you do this? Do you do that? We know that there has been lots of failures associated with different panels for different reasons, with different solutions. And going back to what I said before, really, you know, it's not for me to say, you know, where people have had issues. You know, it's not what we would do, but people know their issues are out there, you know, and I think that you know, while we've been researching this now for a long time, this has been going on for a long time behind the scenes. You know, we've even been looking through social media and some of the FAQs that we see on our website, for example. Nigel probably say exactly the same, and it staggers. It never ceases to amaze me just how much different information there is out there. And we spoke about that, you know, with our marketing teams, as the technical teams, just trying to really make these solutions as easy as possible for people, you know, knowing that the solution works with the right board. And this is why, you know, we've not just dashed out a solution for every type of retrofit panel out there. We've had to take a real deep look at these, even talking to our colleagues over in Germany and their experiences over it and things like that. And of course, the contractors who are using it, absolutely, this guy in Polypipe, you know, and we've formed a real nice tight alliance now, and we're quite, you know, we're very sure about where we want to go with these systems. As for individual failures, there's a number of reasons. Sometimes that's a fitting issue. Sometimes, and more often than not, probably lack of knowledge. I would say. Absolutely. What would you say, mate? Where you come across the biggest? 100%.
I mean, like we mentioned at the beginning, you know, ARDEX products, Polypipe products, both seen as market leading products. We know they're good. But if the lack of the knowledge is there when they are installing, little mistakes can lead to big problems. I think it's fair to say, Lou, isn't it?
Well, I think it staggered me really when we got into this, and I remember, you know, me, you and Stu Wood sat down, we were talking, we just kept thrashing out all these, this solution, that solution, or this scenario, that scenario, and we were sat there like, wow, we never really sort of realised we had these opportunities to install these, you know, these systems in the areas that we've got, and that's, you know, frankly, just working together and as we said, coming up with the right solution. whether that's a subfloor prep solution. I think that, if I can be really honest, I think that is where a lot of the ground needs to be made up.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
The panels, just like anything else, they're only as good as what they're stuck to.
Yeah.
You know,
so would you say that subfloor prep is where you see most of the issues arise from?
Yeah.
Would you say with these sort of systems, Nigel?
I've drove up and down this country now looking at different problems for the last few years in my site support role, and I would say probably 80% is down to the subfloor prep or the lack of subfloor prep, which is a case of, you know, making sure it's free of deflection, making sure it's level or flat, and if we don't get that, then we see that the problems sort of transpire through to the finished floor coverings, don't we?
And that's it.
And it's usually tiles. It's usually, because tiles are rigid, you know, even with best will in world with a flexible tile adhesive, if that board's moving, those tiles are going to move. You're going to get fractured tiles or even fractured grout lines, which is what we see.
And the same can be said for the resilience as well. Yeah. You know, and again, we don't want to go too deep, of course, but even moisture control systems, you know, you can't just go putting these and throwing these on concretes of a period, because there's nothing to stop that moisture coming through. And you put a gypsum board down, of course, which is full of organic material, naturally, it's going to
doesn't like water, does it?
It's going to break down, or it's going to take up that moisture content, and it's going to pass that through to those contact adhesives above, of course.
So what would be the ARDEX solution for
that instance,
moisture control? Then?
Yeah, well, we are famed, as you know, for our moisture control and subfloor solutions. You know, we've got a couple of options now. You know, we've got NA naturally. You know, we'd use the pre-smooth the bases. We've got DPM 1C, 1CR as well, of course. You've got multiple options after that. Without going into too much detail, I don't want to give the training away, guys. You know, but naturally, you know, we can go different types of primers on top of the DPM, of course, or we can go full NA sandwich. But we've also got now products, other products within the range as well. But you know, we're trying to keep the options fairly restricted at this moment in time, because even get to this point with those options has taken a long time. I'm sure that, you know, as we know, more options will become available, but we've got a starting point now. We've got a solution now. That's the main thing. But with moisture control, it's an everyday off the shelf thing for us guys, and the thing that, you know, the TSMs or our technical support managers up and down the country talk about day in, day out.
Yeah, and I've had one recently as well, Lou, if you don't mind me just nipping in and saying a standard overlay system, so the gypsum fibre panel. And it being installed on an old concrete floor, no DPM in that concrete floor, and all that's happened is it's come through, rotted the boards, and ultimately that's transferred through the boards as well and rotted the engineered wood above it.
Right.
So
big problem.
Yeah, I think it's hard. Sometimes you do have to look a little deeper. You know what's going on underneath the panels and stuff, and you know they are only as good as what they're put down on. You know, and that's something we can certainly help with. We're not just there, you know, we'll talk about support, hopefully. I'm sure you'll get us to that, but it's not just about the products that we can use, it's the support that we offer, and that's another reason why we're sat around this table, because like the premium product, we offer premium support, and with that will come training and training packages as well, which will go through all the options as well.
So we talked a little bit about screeds. What other sort of floors can these retrofit systems go on? We're talking timber, sort of insulation. You know, what's the options there?
Not so much insulation. So insulation would create too much deflection in the floor if it was been laid straight on top of that. So we've always said the subfloor has to be structural. So that's either going to be a concrete floor or screeded floor, or like you say, a mezzanine chipboard, timber floor. I mean, there's certain scenarios, just to cover it quickly, if you've got an old floorboard, or old floorboard, should I say, on a structural timber deck, you know yourself, and it's something we've discussed, Lou, that can be a little bit, let's say, far from flat. So that sort of scenario, we're looking at potentially overplaying it first to get it a flatter layer for the overlay to go on to the top of. And again, depending on which board you use, sort of dictates what installation method you use. The overlay plus can be mechanically screwed, or we've talked about gluing and screwing it, so the glue fills any sort of slight deviations in the floor. The screw really gets a good fix then into the panel.
So talking about the installation methods then, so we're saying you can lay them dry?
You can standard overlay, because it's such a heavy board, just to give you a sort of a comparison. Standard overlay.
Actually, right behind us now.
Right behind us now, That panel is 600 by 800, and it's going to cover, so it covers just about half a square metre, 10 kilograms each. So long as that subfloor's nice and perfectly flat, we can actually lay it dry and just butt joint and glue it if you want.
So there are other options, Lou? You
100%, yeah, and
layer putting adhesive down before.
And me and Nigel, we've had a lot of we've been doing loads of this behind closed doors.
We have,
because of the literature we're producing. We've also had successful case studies as well. So we have had live trials as well as trials behind closed doors as well, which have been hugely successful. It never staggers to amaze me though. And if the floor layers and the tilers of the world, I'm a tiler by trade, but we tend to walk around with our feet and we tend to feel. So we tend to feel with our feet, and you might think a floor's flat. Quite often it's not as flat as you actually think.
It's that old saying, I've heard it 100 times, was the subfloor level? It were alright.
It were alright, it was flat enough.
We're talking these
you can make it right with the board. You can just make it right with the board, just pack it out, you'll be right. And I think that's why, again, this collaboration goes both ways. We've had to take a lot of guidance off Polypipe here. This is their industry, this is their playing field.
And touche though, with that, I think it works both ways. That the information we've had off you has been invaluable towards our guidance, and also when I'm out there on sites looking at potential problems, I now stand a better chance of knowing exactly what's caused.
Yeah, we start speaking, don't we? But going back to what you were just asking, Phil, I guess is we have now got adhesive solutions beneath as well, pre-priming the reverser boards in the case of overlay.
That's important for the gypsum board.
For the overlay board, absolutely is, because it's a gypsum-based material. So of course it's quite a simple process. Just coat a P51 on the reverse.
And what does the priming do then?
Well, again, just think of almost like flipping an anhydrite screed on its head, essentially, but we're laying the screed as a board, I guess.
Yeah.
So we're going to use a cementitious tile adhesive, to take out those minor imperfections. We don't necessarily need to bond the boards. What we're there to do is just make sure them boards go down on a nice cushioned platform, just to take any minor surface irregularities out, and that could be done with anything from a 6mm trowel using the new X7 RS1 or something like that, or it could be done with a thick bed solid bed of 10x15 round notch. You could probably even go large format, or you flatten the base first, and this is again where we see the problem. So again, wayward concretes and screeds and old screed materials are very seldom flat, and that's what you have to understand with this, and he will know this better than me, is that these systems seldom go into new properties, because if you're building a new property, you probably put it in the screed.
Yeah.
And so we do have screed materials, of course, and many solutions for traditional encapsulated wet fed. That's not a problem at all. But many of these properties that the retrofits are going into older properties, bringing their heating systems up to the modern era, I guess. So very seldom are floors actually flat. And I think that's probably one of the biggest problem areas that we find here.
100%. I can't stress it enough how many times I've put a 6 foot level over a floor and it's got a 5mm bump there, a 10mm bump here, and it's just not good enough. We need to be working off a nice flat base. That's structural. And again, for those that don't know what we mean when we're saying deflection, if there's any plumbing and heating guys on, we mean springing the floor. So when you walk across it, if you can feel a bounce, that's deflection, isn't it?
It's just going to come right through the top. Yeah. There's no getting away from that.
You've got to get that out of there.
There is no flexible tile adhesive, no flexible smoothing compound. As flexible as installations as LVTs and vinyl are, it will still come through. That vertical deflection has to go. That is 100%. It is the devil.
And I presume we're talking about timber floors as well. We've got to make sure it's the deflections out the floor with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the good thing about overlaying a timber floor with any of these boards is they do also provide additional rigidity to the floor. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's kind of like double bubble, I guess. We're getting additional rigidity from the system itself, as well as giving us a platform to actually work with. So, we're killing, many birds with one stone, so to speak. So there's certainly a lot of pros to this, and that would, again, if it's timber right now, that'd be the overlay plus because it's lighter.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, that's the other beauty of the overlay plus being in the range is for upper floors, even on, like we said, most of these are going into older buildings, but the minute if someone wants something upstairs, they might look at an overlay plus because it's lighter. They're not going to really affect the structural sort of design of the joists upstairs and that sort of thing.
The weight takes them not as heavy, are they?
It's worth thinking about. We talked about weight last week, didn't we? Weight of installation and things. And again, if you're talking to tilers and floor layers, of course, they tend to overlay floors on those suspended floors with plywoods. Of course, if you're a floor layer, backer boards, if you're a tiler, a lot of these guys will be familiar with overlaying floors. It's an everyday kind of solution for them. But likewise with dynamic deflection, which is you know, the bounce of the floor, someone walking
Yeah.
over it, of course. You've also got to consider the additional dead load, you know, as well. You know, a floor might not bounce, but it might just sag a little. So again, you know, it's not unknown, just as a hint and a tip. We're not trying to scare people away, but sometimes you have to do work to a timber floor before you get to these points, you know. And again, we're always happy to advise on that as well.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Now talking about sort of the solutions over the top, probably this is a question to you then, Lou. Can you go direct to these boards? Do you have to put anything else? A levelling
I would say before you get to us, you really need to speak to this gentleman about commissioning and things like that.
Yeah, I suppose it's the next step then is putting the pipe work in, get the boards down.
Absolutely. I mean, once we've done the pre-prep of the floor, which is, I think we both agree, is one of the most important elements, isn't it?
Yeah.
Get the boards down, however you want to fix them. I mean, obviously, you know, we spoke about a couple of different ways you can do that. For more information on it, you can always go to polypipeufh.com. We've got a YouTube channel, Polypipe Trade. If you type that in YouTube, you can see the different ways of fixing it. And then we're looking at, like you say, installing pipe work. So
what important things to think about when you're installing the pipe work then?
Yep, so I mean, I would always say, you know, there's a lot of manufacturers now, ourselves included, that provide free designs. So you can send in your plans or room dimensions, and we can tell you how many circuits there are going to be, how long they are, and the flow rates, which, you know, we aren't going into too much technical detail. Flow rates are a very important factor when you're installing underfloor. But then once you've got your pipe work in and you follow the design, we've then got to fill it. Flush it through one circuit at a time, which is, again, there's videos on Polypipe Trade on that, myself showing you how to commission systems properly. Once we've pumped the air out, or flushed the air out, should I say, with mains water pressure, we can then look at doing a pressure test. Now, pressure test, we recommend 6 bar for an hour initially, and then if we're going to be putting like a self-leveler over the top, which is something we're going to be coming to now, we want to drop that to probably 3 bar and treat it like it would be a traditional screeded encapsulated system, where we drop it to 3 bar, and what that does is it actually simulates thermal expansion that you're going to get during the normal operation of the system.
Yeah.
You know, everything when it warms up, it expands. And the pipe's no different. In fact, plastic actually has more linear thermal expansion than what copper does. So, you know, we've got to make sure that we've got that up at 3 whilst we put something like a self-leveler down. And then we're mitigating the chances of that pipework swelling under normal operation and cracking all that lovely leveler that you don't want to happen. So yeah, I would say that's a little bit of a top tip. I know some guys would say it's probably a bit overkill, but I'd rather be a bit more bib and braces than...
Yeah, one that got me, and again, so good to be on site with this guy. When we did the Stoke project, and of course it was LVT that was going down, and he literally put a stop to the job because there was no thermostat.
Yeah.
Now, of course, for LVTs, you know, the guidance on glue line temperatures and things like that is really, really strict, and 27 degrees as a surface temperature is the max. Now, whether that changes in the future, I don't know, but that's where we are in 2024.
Yeah.
You know, and so to think about things like that, where you've got to be really, really strict in controlling the amount of heat going into that floor. You know, and I think that was one thing that he stopped me when we need a stat in this floor, and I was like, oh, so obvious. Yeah. You know, when you've got to
control that temperature.
Yeah. So all it is obviously your normal thermostat's going to read off air temperature, but most good programmable stats out there now will have the means for what we call an external sensor. Now that can be a wet room sensor in a surrounded box, so that you're not having electrical thermostats in a wet room. But in this scenario, what Lou's sort of addressing, which is a really important point to be fair, is using a floor probe, and that's again using LVTs, engineered woods, anything like that. It's always really, really good to make sure you have that conversation with your customer. What floor coverings are we looking at? Because if you're wanting to go down that sort of route, we may need to put a floor probe in, and we need to put that in before we put a self-leveler over, before we tile, whatever. It's got to go in, encapsulated in it. I think we use a little bit of 10mm microbore, so it's got like a bit of a sleeving around it. Dug a channel in between 2 pipe runs. You used a bit of the A46 to repair it with and make sure it's cemented in. And then we just did a little channel for the cable back and up and into the thermostat. And then it's just a case of getting your thermostat to work off. Well, with our ones that we actually particularly sell, you can not only just use the floor sensor and set the limit at 27, You can also get it to work off air as well, so whether it gets to your air temperature or your floor temperature first, it'll knock off.
Yeah. So after you've laid the pipes, had the commissioned, and then we talk about leveler then,
Well,
Lou,
not so much,
so
no,
is there
believe
anything
it or not,
else you want to think about?
Not commissioned at that point, by rights really speaking, because the smoothing compound is now the screed, so to speak, where traditionally it'd be encapsulated within a traditional screeding material.
Yeah.
Maybe an hydride, maybe, you know, flowing cementitious, traditional sand or fibre reinforced sand cement. The smoothing compound now is the screed, so to speak. So pressure testing and commissioning, or putting pressure through the pipes and commissioning, are two different things. So what we need to do first is actually get the smoothing compound down, and then we would commission, almost like we're commissioning the screed is what we would do. We've successfully tested a couple of systems now, as you know. One probably will come as no surprise to anybody, which is our highest performing smoothing compound out there, which is ARDEX NA. Because of its durability, its flexibility, its bond strength, it just cannot be beaten that way. And of course, in testing, that proved to be hugely successful for us. The other one is ARDEX K40HB, which is our fibre reinforced system. Really versatile system, can be used for the subfloor prep before, as well as the NA can be as well, in certain circumstances and things like that. But yeah, so the smoothing compound is what needs to go down next, and again, where you're putting these boards might even dictate the smoothing compound you've got to use, or how much smoothing compound you've got to use as well.
Just touch on that. One thing I noticed in some of the photos, you've got this foam strip around the edge. Do you want to touch on what that's about and why we've got that?
Again, and like just much like we're talking about when we're pressure testing, and we've got to treat it like a screeded system. Essentially, that's what it kind of is, really.
Yeah, it needs room to move.
When
so it's almost just like expansion strip.
Yes, that's exactly what it's for. Yeah, when that self-leveler heats up, it's going to expand. We want it to be able to expand into something that's got some give and not something that's solid. Because again, we get it all fractured, and it looks nice when it goes down, I've got to say. So,
and that's the thing to remember, especially for if you imagine putting the overlay plus onto a timber floor, even though the overlay plus board itself is dimensionally stable, and it won't swell and expand and contract because it's an XPS coated cement system, and therefore it's fantastic. But the timber floor might that it's stuck to, and therefore we also need to buffer that movement sometimes. And it's and Nigel will tell you it's an inexpensive item, but again, just from a performance point of view, it needs to be there. We're not saying there's other ways that you can't do it. You could in all honesty pop a bead of silicone round, just as long as you make sure that you keep that smoothing compound, you keep the panels away from those edges, and just allow everything to breathe and move naturally with the subfloors as well. Yeah. Especially with a heated system that we're about to put in now, it really can make the difference and prevent things like tenting of ceramics and problems with LVTs, in the same vein.
So once you've got the leveler down, obviously, what do you do then? Wait for it to dry, and then can you go on it straight away, or anything else you have to do?
Commission at that point, we would then start putting some heat through the system. Again, Nigel would give guidance on that. Yep. If you want us to do that now, or again, we can leave the board. You can leave all those bits out, but if you want to come on the courses, of course, which we'll talk about as well. But the next thing, of course, would be choose a solution. Now, there are, if we're talking resilience. If I just give you a quick spin through some of the products that are available to you. So of course we spoke about the smoothing compounds, which would be K40HB, ARDEX NA, again needs no introduction. There's nothing wrong if you're leaving on trowel marking and using feather, if you are a floor layer. And then of course from that point, providing, it depends on what you're installing. Again, a lot of the LVT manufacturers would prefer you going wet with a product like AF175, which is our fibre reinforced adhesive. Nothing wrong with that. We've got the PSs as well, and we've also got 2575, the heavy duty 1K adhesive for areas of high solar gain. Now that's not to be confused with underfloor heating.
That's to do with sun on, isn't it?
All of our adhesives in the flooring range are suitable for underfloor heating. So they are all compatible with these systems, absolutely all compatible. The only time that would change, of course, is where we have these areas of high solar gain. Those areas where you've got little control over the heating, the floor will be consistent, but it might be also sat in front of a south-facing window with some baking sun through there or something like that. And it might not always be sunlight either.
Could be a cooker.
Is that going to raise the temperature then quite a lot?
Massively so, and really uncontrollably as well. And like Nigel just said there, sometimes not sunlight, it could be under a range cooker or something like that as well. And so of course, you know, as we talked about glue line temperatures and things like before, the regular adhesive ranges, you know, do come to a limit pretty quickly. So it's important that we understand the difference between underfloor heating and high solar gain, or these areas where we do exert more stresses through the install. From a tiling point of view, again, the solutions are really straightforward. You know, what we have to do, and please, Nigel, I say this with the greatest respect, these are non-conventional heating systems. They're not encapsulated within a screed. The heat source is directly below the floor finish. There's no 30mm of screed here that you would get in a traditional system. So again, we've had to look at the higher performing materials in the ranges, because we did test them, as you know. As you know, Nige, you know, we got absolutely filthy in your...
I ruined a pair of ARDEX trainers.
Yeah, and we set the fire rounds off about 3 times when we were doing it, and it wasn't the fire rounds, it was just grinding floors away. But we tested a number of options, you know, but we ended up moving towards our flagship adhesive within the ARDEX range, which is X77, our high yield Microtech adhesive, beautiful product to work with, but the highest performing cementitious system that we have as well. And of course, using that, we would obviously recommend an uncoupling system, which for us is the FlexBone VA, or the Indoor Tech FlexBone VA. Again, above.
And what does that do? What does that? For those who don't know.
Well, of course, yeah. Sorry, guys, I do forget that not everyone's a tiler on here. So effectively, it's just an uncoupling system is designed to buffer the lateral stress within an installation. Where you get tiles, which are obviously, you know, so when we're talking ceramics here, guys, you know, don't give an awful lot. Them combined with the cement-based adhesives can exert what we call surface tension on the floor, and likewise the heating system itself can exert a lot of pressure in terms of thermal expansion and contraction. So what an uncoupling system does, it just buffers some of that movement and allows the tile installation to work with the expansion and contraction of the floor, and allow the floor as well to reduce some of that tension from the tile to the floor as well. So so from our point of view, you know, we've kept the solutions really straightforward and simple. These are tested solutions as well. This is not just us, you know, sticking our neck out on a wing and a prayer and just saying, well, it'll be guaranteed. You know, this is an installation guarantee, not a product guarantee. This is a fully tested installation guarantee now, with products and systems that we know complement each other and have been tested to the point of almost destruction. So we have gone with X77 above the uncoupling system as well, and of course after that you get the choice. So you can go with an FS and FL grout as well, Flex FL should I say, if you want something more chemically resistant, you know, maybe because you want something that's going to clean really easy, wipe clean. Again, there's nothing wrong with products like EG18 either.
Excellent. Well, I think it's time to throw it over to the floor, shall we, guys, and see if we've got any questions coming in. So we have actually got a few questions that we've come in. So we've got a question from Paul. What thickness of NA is required on top? So that depends on the board that you're using as well. So if that's, I'm assuming maybe a resilient question, but I'll give you both anyway. If it is the XPS panel, so the overlay plus, you need 10mm. Because the panel itself and the floor covering itself in this instance doesn't have the same resilience as a ceramic, for example. So if you're going on the overlay plus system and you're using the you're using the NA, and you are installing a resilient covering, not a ceramic, then you need 10mm minimum, and that's just going to give that on the overlay plus. It's just going to give some protection. It's going to spread the load a little bit on that surface. However, if it's the overlay panel, 3 to 6mm would be absolutely fine. All we're doing really is just giving ourselves a nice platform to work with. Again, we would prime if it's a gypsum panel, massively critical, because it is a gypsum panel at the end of the day. So we would apply a diluted coat of 1 to 3 of P51, and then we just put a smoothing coat on of ARDEX NA at 3 to 6mm. We're more than adequate. And all we're doing there, we're just taking those undulations out where the pipes are, or were even. Because again, a lot of people don't realise, and again, this is great for me. We went, if you've not got pipes running through a floor, turn the panel upside down. Absolutely. You know, so you can do things like that as well. But the critical thing is you get the right thickness, but it's also based on what and this is why you've got to know what your floor finish is. So what would it be for tiling then? Is it different? Believe it or not, with overlay plus an overlay, you don't actually need to put a smoothing compound down first.
No, it can be tiled
straight on it.
Yeah. Tiled straight too. So you absolutely can do if you want to do some more work on top, or you need to maybe adjust heights, maybe you know, a little bit. Absolutely fine. So 10mm for the XPS on a resilient covering. With tiles, it's not necessary for the overlay plus. Another question from Paul: how long do you leave the NA before commissioning the underfloor heating? Well, again, so thicknesses would apply and things like that at times, I guess. If we are talking 10 millimeters of product going over the top of an XPS, for example, I would certainly be leaving 24 hours before we go back to it. Again, if we're only talking a thin covering, NAs, as we know, is an ultra rapid setting product, and again, we can be doing that within the day as well. So that's the benefit of working with these fast track systems. We're not having to wait the weeks that we would have to do for commissioning a traditional screed with an encapsulated system.
Which is a good point, really, because that's something I would say I get asked a hell of a lot, is, you know, commissioning process on that. And just to give everyone a sort of background base knowledge on it would be, first of all, depending on what product you're using, like we're talking about NA at the minute, is check with the manufacturer of that and say how long for it to be naturally cured. And then once that's naturally cured, we're happy to start introducing heat, but we don't just want to put 50 degrees through it. So we want to set the blending valve down at the minimum and slowly introduce that, probably talking 3 days at minimum. And then we can look to do no more than 5 degrees, sort of turning it up each day up to design temp. This is another mistake that people make. They might go to maximum on the blending valve, which is 60 degrees, whereas in reality we don't want it to be 60 degrees, we only want it to go up to 45, 50. So it's just a case of checking on your design from your underfloor manufacturer, taking it up to that. And then what some people will say then is, you know, Bib and Brace's job again is run it at 3 days at the higher design temp, or the, you know, what the design temp is going to be, should I say, and then bring it down 5 degrees a day, back down to minimum. And then what we've slowly done is we've slowly expanded it to its maximum potential, whether it, you know, that self-leveler, and then we've reduced it back to its minimum, so we haven't firmly shopped it either way. And I think if you're stuck to those guidelines, you'll never go far wrong. But it's worth noting just to check, depending on the product you're using. I mean, like ARDEX and ourselves at Polypipe have come together to give you guidance on that. If you do happen to be using something else, then check with that manufacturer. I think that's all we could say.
Yeah.
Excellent. Couple of other questions. Talked about the P51 Primer. Is it neat on the pipes? Diluted on the board? One coat or two with
so
plastic, what's the ratio?
Yeah, plastic pipe and an acrylic primer, you know, it's not going to work. So generally speaking, so we're talking about overlay here, not overlay plus. There's no need to prime overlay plus. There's no benefit in doing it because of the makeup of the panel, of course. But with overlay, then we would recommend 1 to 3. But it's always advised, if you can do, is get the primer in before the pipes go in naturally. Practically speaking as well, you know.
What if you? Okay, I'm going to put a scenario here then. So what if you get on site, the pipes are already in, but there's no primer? Can you just put the primer on top?
At the end of the day, the boards are absorbent. You know, and we found this with one of the projects we did at Stoke, if you remember. You know, we found this. We didn't have that option of pre-priming, should I say? Yeah. And because you're going with a low dilution anyway at 1 to 3, and the boards are absorbent, and don't forget the pipes are a tight fit. So what we're priming for is to hydrate the smoothing compound. That's really important. So we're going to get the best flow, best surface finish, best performance. But in the case of the gypsum panel, we're also protecting it from ettering out. Now, as the pipes are a tight fit anyway, as Nigel will tell you, it's very difficult to get any compound round the back of a pipe anyway, if I'm honest with you.
Going to sit on top of it, isn't it?
But what we've also seen is when we do dilute the primer down, and it is at 1 to 3, so 1 part P51, 3 parts water by volume, okay? Because the board is absorbent, when we've actually removed the pipes, the primer is actually it's soaking through around anyway. So yeah, ideally, you know, you want to try and pre-prime, but again, the realities of such is, what we have to bear in mind here, guys, is we might have multiple trades on a job. We might have plumbers and heat engineers, builders, then getting towards the guys putting the floor finishes in. And you know, our courses will be designed to give people an overview at whichever stage you come in at.
Yes, absolutely.
So, but regarding the P51, it's always 1 to 3 in this instance. If the pipes are in, don't stress it. But putting a primer down neat in this instance would actually be quite counterproductive. Plus you're going to get more for you. More for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway. Couple more questions then. Someone's asked about putting 6mm barrel board over them and then a 5 mil of compound.
Yeah, so I get what we're saying there, but what we have to bear in mind as well, we do have group guarantees now. I don't think it's any secret now that Bal and ARDEX, you know, they've been sister companies for over 20 years. But nevertheless, we've chosen to keep it with the one brand. I get what we're doing. When you put a cement board down like Balboard or even a Magnox board like Balboard, what you're doing is you're mechanically fixing the screed. The danger is, of course, is that you may also have to mechanically fix that. And of course, we've spoken about this.
I'm just thinking, you got pipes underneath. Do you want to be screwing into the pipe?
Exactly.
It can just become a bit of a pain,
Yeah.
for want of a better word.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what me and you have discussed quite a bit of, haven't we? You know, historically, for many, many years, we've said you can use backer boards or plywood even, so long as it's flooring grade. But the reality of that is more laboursome. You know, so it's no sort of secret. I'm a big advocate for, if you need an intermediate layer or you want an intermediate layer, level is surely the way to go, because it's quicker. I think cost wise these days, by the time you've took it.
Well, 6 mil of compound. You know, a bag you're looking at probably about 2 meters of coverage.
Yeah.
You know, so you put that into what would be 2 square meters. You know, potentially 2.5 boards or something like that.
Screws,
3 boards.
Labour.
Your screws, labour, time. You know, it's probably more cost effective to use a smoothing compound, and we're getting a bond without having to mechanically fix at the same time.
We'll move to another question then from Chris. He's asking about do you have the same issue with different zones and expansion gaps that we can't cover? Now this is interesting, because I was going to ask this question. What do you do with movement joints?
Yeah, do you know what? This is one of the ones when me and him started working together. I was like, what do you do, right? Because ultimately you could be going over substrate. You get this, don't we talk about this?
Yeah.
Is you could get an old property with a new extension going in, with a modern day screed going in as well. But nevertheless, you've got 2 different materials. And I was like, well, what do? You can't bridge it. Surely you could, because you know the standards within our industries dictate that you don't. And quite simply, what do you do, mate?
What's that? Sorry, just run that past me.
So you've got two substrates. We have to have a movement joint between.
Yeah.
So
are we talking about having 2 different systems here, like screed and overlay, or?
No. What we're talking about, someone's asking there, is what do you do if there's an expansion joint in the floor?
Yeah, if there's an expansion joint,
we have to honour it.
We can honour it, and it's very important that we do so. But it might mean that one side of it you have a circuit, and then the other side of it you have a circuit. Now,
but you're not joining across that circuit with the pipe, no?
If you do, what you'd probably do, it runs through the expansion joint material in a conduit, the pipe work. That's what we'd recommend in that scenario, because the pipe flow and return to the other circuit might have to cross that, but we'd have to protect it with a conduit.
But the boards, no, you can't put a board over.
The boards, no, you'd use that as a joint. If we're talking about retrofit systems, which obviously we are tonight, you'd run it up the line, wouldn't you?
We would have to soft seal it, you know. And so what Nigel's saying, potentially there's 2 different heating zones.
Rather than one circuit covering the area, depending how big it is, because there's a maximum on that, but we might have to split it into 2 circuits. So that could be something that you get, you know, it's experience, I suppose, but you do a walkover on site, and if you've got that, it's really important you pick up the phone and speak to the design team of the underfloor heating and say, look, we've got an expansion joint here, can you factor that into the design so we can work around it when we're installing?
And how does that relate then to the floor covering then, Lewis? For that
No, yeah,
is it the same as?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You've got to honour it. You know, you have to honour it. And there's so many scenarios there. Proper expansion joints. You know, they're there because surfaces move at different rates. Quite often in a lot of properties, you might not just go from 2 of the same surface. You might go from timber floor to concrete. You might go from concrete to traditional sand cement screed. There's always connotations of what you might come across. And so, of course, you know, they don't just expand. Don't forget, we're putting heat on these floors.
Yeah.
You know, they don't just expand differently. You know, in the terms of, you might even have a suspended floor going up against a solid floor, and you might get that cantilevering effect. And so, of course, you've got to be careful, because you may not only compromise your finish, you may even compromise pipe work and things like that. And that's what you've got to be really careful of. So again, we have to stick to the guidance, you know, as does Nigel and Polypipe and their industry. By rights, there should be a movement joint all the way through, from bottom to top.
Fantastic. Well, a couple more questions then. I think we'll maybe have these our last 2 questions. Firstly, from Paul, I've seen systems with aluminium foil on the surface. Are these really suitable for tiling directs?
Definitely one for you.
Interesting question.
Yeah, I knew this one would come up at some point.
Bit of gritted primer.
Yeah, I've got to say that this is probably the one where we, as an industry, struggle most. And by the way, we have looked at these. We're not, you know, it's not for me to say what people should and shouldn't do, or us for that matter. If a manufacturer tells you you should do this and do that, and you follow their guidance, then that's absolutely fine. What I can say is that we found that even with these systems, if we want to call them foil backed or aluminium backed, again, the board type changes, anything from EPS down to polystyrene, which is quite compressible, which is, you know, it's a bad start straight away. But realistically, again, knowing what the foils do and the aluminium does and how it changes state, and the one thing I can say is that it is unpredictable is the problem. And a business like us, who needs to know that this will work time in, time out, every time you crack that bag, it's got to work. We couldn't replicate success every single time. Yeah. And that was the problem, because that, just to reiterate what we've done, these systems have gone through life cycles and they have been
rigorous testing.
All of these, we wanted to have as many solutions as we humanly could. You know, it's in our interest to have those solutions. Believe me, we'd love to sell some material and to be able to recommend a material for them, but we just can't replicate success 100% of the time, and that was our problem.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Luke. So last question then. I think. I think we touched on this already about Darren seeing a lot of these boards going over old slabs with no DPM or a new screed with moisture in it. And we've touched on this, but maybe just go over for Darren again, sort of the solution there.
Again, we will have training coming up for this, Darren, as well. We will be adopting a modular approach to our training sessions as well, whether you want to come in and learn about subfloor preparation and moisture control systems, which would answer this one, of course. But applying liquid DPM, such as our DPM 1C, and providing a platform through that with a moisture tolerant smoothing compound, that is what we would necessarily do. You can apply ARDEX DPM 1C directly to a smooth and flat concrete, but very seldom are they, given the fact, again, we're talking about properties of a certain age. Yeah. So the key thing first is, again, just prep that slab, make sure there's nothing loose on there, make sure it's ready to take on the smoothing compound. So we would apply a smoothing coat, if necessary, of ARDEX NA. That gives us a platform to apply the DPM 1C, and at that rate, because we're putting on a nice smooth surface, it means we can control the thickness of the DPM 1C. You're going to get better coverage from it in doing so as well. And then if you are wanting to bond the boards, we could then simply apply P51 Primer to the DPM, and then we could put a pop a tile adhesive down. Or alternatively, go the full NA sandwich, and you could also apply ARDEX NA to the surface of the DPM, and then you can install dry if you so wish. If you wanted to. So this is without going into too much, of course, and that sounds like an awful lot, and it is, by the way. It's probably not as when you see it in reality and you come to one of our academies, and you've seen us do this now, mate. The brochures that we're producing as well will have all this technical information, step-by-step guidance. You will see more of this as we move forward. My advice is to when you see these courses go live is please feel absolutely free. Our courses, by the way, are completely free of charge, and we do cover off moisture control in many of our other courses as well, and some of this just bolts straight across, from a lot of the stuff that we do every single day in the academy. The guys out on the road do it every single day, and in this instance we're not applying tiles on LVT, we're actually fixing the panels, and then we get to the finishes above. But yeah, rest assured, that's a great question, mate.
The last question, just Darren saying, is it a no for LVT? We're not saying a no for LVT at all, are we?
So no, what he's saying is if it's too late and they've already put the
panels down,
sadly
you're going to get a transfer of it through. We've seen it.
That's the problem. And the other thing is, even though XPS boards are waterproof, they're still not a tanking system, and the products that you're going to install with them aren't moisture tolerant either. So you're allowing a lot of that moisture, the mineral content, and all those things. It's going to come up through. So sadly, Darren, sorry mate, I feel like the Grim Reaper there. If you do find it, but this is why we're coming together. Yeah. Because these are the things that people get wrong.
Absolutely.
If the boards are down, if we're lucky, they might be dry fitted, we can get them back up. But if the boards are down and there's no DPM, unfortunately, we couldn't recommend that you would, you carry on with the install, because I think it's safe to say that it's not a case of if you get a problem, it's just a case of how long you've got, sadly.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, thanks everybody for your questions. It's been a really great session. We're just going to close off, maybe just asking you both, how do you sort of support the contractors and homeowners out there, installers?
Yeah, well, I think that's a big reason why we've sort of come together, because we're very similar in this regard, aren't we? Well, you know, we've got a site support team, and you know, myself going around the country doing training in various satellite centres. We've got 3 up in Scotland. Across the mid-belt, we've got 3 across the north, 1 in the Midlands and 1 around the Lupton area at the moment. And like I say, what we also provide as a service is our site support. So if you've got an issue out on site, or you're new to it and you want a bit of help out on site, we provide all that sort of what's the right word for it, Lou? It's support, isn't it?
Massively.
And what can, for those who don't know, what can ARDEX?
That was really important to us,
provide?
by the way. It's not just a case of teaming up somebody for a good product. We had to make sure that we could team up in terms of support as well, and complement ourselves with the training and the support we give. And they were all singing from the same hymn sheet. We're very fortunate. I've got a fantastic team of guys. There's 8 technical support managers around the UK, 9 including myself. I don't get out there as often as a lot of the guys do, but we are very fortunate that we've got some very experienced guys out there who are all floor layers and tilers, much like myself as well. So of course we do on-site training, moisture testing, general advice on surface preparation, and we're not just talking about application of compounds now, we're also talking about maybe even removing latents and things like that as well, taking the top from a power floated concrete, and all these kind of things that we do. There's no limit to what we can generally provide. As I said, we are very fortunate as a business to have such great guys in the business, and the TSMs bring so much experience to the table. But of course we've got these fantastic training facilities as well, north and south. We will be working with Polypipe in their training centres for this as well. So this is a full-on collaboration, and you can come along to any of these courses. Keep your eye open for them, guys, is my advice. You know, you're going to see these pretty soon. And please come aboard. But yeah, our support, just like Nigel and Polypipe, is completely free of charge. If you want advice from us, you want us to come and look at jobs for you, you've got some concerns over the subfloor, how something's been installed, the guys know how to get themselves around these issues and can provide fantastic service.
And is there anything else that you guys can give these installers? You got any perks or anything like that at all?
Yeah. So we've actually got a sort of reward scheme called Polypipe Perks. So you can actually go on the website, if you type in polypipeperks.com, I believe it is, and you sign up to that. And all you do is every time you buy something Polypipe, whether it's underfloor heating, above ground drainage, below ground drainage, whatever, you scan your receipt, collect points, and then you can either save them points up and get like a drill or a weekend away, or you might be able to save up a few less and get a drill. It's you master your own destiny with that sort of thing. So
yeah. And ARDEX, do we have anything?
Amazing, which has just been nominated for an international award as well, actually, which is Give Back's Rewards. When you need a product as a tradesperson, you're going to have to buy it anyway. So to get something back for that completely free, you know, is amazing. So we launched Give Backs last year. Simply download it from the App Store or Google Play. Whenever you buy any group product from ARDEX, whether that's ARDEX or indeed BAL for any other installations that you may have, simply scan the invoice that you've got. The AI picks out the ARDEX product, so you could actually have some Polypipe goodies on there as well, absolutely. But the AI will pick out the ARDEX product in there, whether that's a bottle of P51, whether that's ARDEX NA, one of the floor adhesives. It will pick that up, and points mean pounds, essentially. For every 100 points that you accumulate, and you can accumulate for up to a year, it's worth £10 at your local ATM. And there's almost approaching 20,000 ATMs in the UK, I believe now, where you can use a pinless transaction, I think that's the right way to put it. So when you come to redeem your points, you simply hit the redeem button through the app. It will send you a code. You make your way on down to the local ATM. You put the code in, and you get your cash out. It's mind-blowingly good.
Sounds a good reward scheme, that. Yeah. Love it. Brilliant. Well, I think we've come to the end of our Q&A session, so I want to thank everybody that's watched today. Thanks to Nigel from Polypipe and Lewis from ARDEX for joining us this evening. If you've got any more questions, do keep adding them to the comments, and we will get back in touch with you with an answer, or you can contact us direct at ARDEX or Polypipe, and you know, we'll be there in touch and supporting you with your wet fed underfloor heating systems and your projects. So Thanks everyone for joining us, and have a great evening. Cheers guys, see you later.